my reading of the situation is they would rather keep the powder dry and use those funds. I would love to see you stay at St James's Park or stay as close to St James's Park as possible. If that was not an option and you were having to move.
So Keith, there's only one place to start, of course, with the transfers in Newcastle United. Miguel Almiron, he's returned to Atlanta United. Do you feel that transfer was inevitable with Newcastle's PSR problem?
Yeah, look, I think it was a deal they probably couldn't turn down. I think the player was at a stage in his career, and I think Eddie said that in his press conference afterwards, that he was probably ready for a move. He's not played much at all this season, has he? And I think the money for a player whose contract was running down was too difficult for Newcastle to turn down. And look, they've had a lot of criticism over the last couple of years for being bad sellers, not selling players, hoarding players. And I think they need to allow players to go when the time is right. And I think for Almiron and Lloyd Kelly as well, which I'm sure we'll speak about, I think the club feel that it's the right time for these guys to go, and it's an opportunity for them to cash in on what feels like a premium time to sell.
Do you think it's a really good time for Lloyd Kelly too? Because obviously with our defence being so strong.
Yeah, I think it's 15 million upfront plus 5 in add-ons. That's the obligation, and that obligation, I'm told, will be met. So I think he essentially just has to play a game or something, and that obligation gets made in the summer. I think from Lloyd Kelly's point of view, look, he hasn't played much. What has he played? 4 or 5 games, something like that. He is, as you rightly point out, third choice left-sided centre back behind both Dan Burn and Sven Botman, and I think we both know that if Lewis Hall was to get injured, I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie went Botman left-sided centre half and Burn at left back. So he's the third choice left centre half, potentially the third choice left back, and I think for the club again, they got him for free in the summer. While everyone will say, "Wow, it's 20 million," it's not really 20 million, because once you build into his wages, and he was a high earner here as well, and you add into the agents' fees and everything, the club aren't going to get 20 million back, but they'll get a fair chunk of that, and then that'll allow them to reinvest again in the summer. Now, I know a lot of the fans will be watching this and reading social media and stuff and saying, "Look, why can't we just go and spend that money now?" But I think they don't want to just make a panic buy now for anyone. It needs to be the right person, the right fit, and I think my reading of the situation is they would rather keep the powder dry and use those funds towards the additional money they'll have to spend in the summer to ensure they get the players in that they want to sign. So look, it's a risk at the moment. I'm sure we'll talk about that. It's a risk not signing because it leaves Newcastle a little bit short. Not so much the Kelly one, because you've got options at the back, but certainly the Almiron one. It is a risk because you've now only got Jacob Murphy as your out-and-out right winger, and if he was to get injured, you're having to play players out of position. But it feels very much like it's a risk they're willing to take at this moment in time.
We've spoken about the departures, but how important do you feel it is for Newcastle to keep these players like Alexander Isak and Bruno, of course, as well, who have previously been linked with moves away from St James's Park?
Yeah, crucial. I mean, without doubt, the most important thing right now is Newcastle keep the world-class talent. Yeah. And in the shape of Isak, Bruno, Tonali, Anthony Gordon, probably Sven Botman just behind them. They've got some world-class players or potential world-class players there, and you need these players to grow. The slight worry is moving forward is if you don't have a good summer window, and these players might think, well, hang on, where is our ambition here? But you would like to think they've had the conversations with the manager and the hierarchy, that the club are trying to do the right things. And you've got to remember, a lot of money was spent in the first 2 years of the takeover. It's kind of unsustainable. They couldn't go on at that record, at that level, given the commercial revenue. The club isn't as high as where they would want it to be. It isn't as high as their competitors, and the fact that they've not been able to trade. They've not sold anyone apart from Anderson and Minter last summer, and then Chris Wood to a lesser extent. He obviously was sold at a loss. But other than these sales in St Maximin, the club haven't brought in a lot of money, and until they get to a position where they're trading well, buying high and trading high, they're going to be stuck a little bit, and it feels like that is what the situation is at the moment. But just going back to your question, without doubt, keeping those players is crucial. But then you've got the worry that if one or two of them get injured, then you are a little bit light in the ground. But it feels like they've made a judgment call on it, and they've decided rather than push the panic button now, they are waiting into the summer when they're in a more comfortable situation to go and spend money.
Can the fans still expect the club to finish in a European level position, top 4, top 5? What do you think?
I think that's the aim. Look, I don't think it's going to be easy. We all saw the match on Saturday against Fulham. Wasn't great. The similar situation a couple of weeks earlier against Bournemouth. There's a chink in the armoury there, isn't there? It's not looked as good as what we perhaps thought it was a month ago. But look, all the teams round about the top end, apart from Liverpool, are slipping up at certain stages. We've seen Arsenal slip up. We've seen Spurs have had a really bad start to the season. Man City, nobody saw that happening. So I think it's just for Newcastle, it's a case of ensuring that these slip-ups are at a minimum. If you'd asked me the question last week, I thought you'd finish top 5. I thought Saturday wasn't a good sign against Fulham, I have to say. But if the Newcastle players that they have stay fit and are playing to their maximum, I am confident that you will finish in the top 5 and you'll have Champions League football next season. The big issue you've got is if you get a couple of injuries, then you're toiling because you don't have the backup that we've alluded to already. So you keep them fit, you keep them playing well, and I do think you'll finish top 5 next season. But you need to cut out matches like the one against Fulham on Saturday.
Absolutely,
you can't have many more of those. You need to get back on that winning run as soon as possible.
We just spoke about the Premier League and of how important it is for Newcastle to finish in a European spot. Of course, the Carabao Cup semi-final, second leg, at home to Arsenal on Wednesday, 2-0 in front. Do you think Newcastle will get the job done? Obviously, Arsenal played so well yesterday, 5-1 against Manchester City, who, although they haven't been as good as they were previously, they're still not a bad side, are they? But 5-1 to demolish them, they'll have a lot of momentum. But what are your thoughts on Wednesday's game?
Yeah, I said in my YouTube video on Saturday after the match that if you're Mikel Arteta now, you're looking at Newcastle and you're thinking, they've just lost at home to Bournemouth, they've just lost at home to Fulham. And he might have been looking at that game and thinking, look, I might not play my strongest team. It's probably too much for us to overturn Newcastle. He's looking at that now thinking, I'm putting my big name players in there. I'm putting my best team out because we've got a chance. If we get an early goal against Newcastle, we've got a chance of turning it around. Now, I know that's not what you guys want to hear, but I'm sure that's what you guys will be thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There'll be nerves there. Of course there'll be nerves. I think it's a different game. I think Wednesday night, under the lights in James's Park, semi-final second leg, the atmosphere will be electric, and I think that's very different to a 12:30 kickoff against Bournemouth on a Saturday, which felt like a bit sleepy, and I still thought they looked a bit jaded on Saturday at the start as well. So I think that'll go in Newcastle's favour. I don't think it'll be easy. I don't think you're going to sail through and win 2-0 and you'll be in the final. I think you'll probably make it difficult for yourselves, but you would like to think that 2-goal lead should be enough to see you over the line. And it's hard to predict given Newcastle games recently, but I could see Wednesday maybe being a draw.
Yeah.
And you're going through in that way. Like I think even if you were offered a 1-0 defeat right now, you would take it as long as you were.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm inclined to agree with you there. I think the main thing is just getting through to that final. We saw how important it was and how amazing it was for the fans to get back to Wembley in that final. Of course, we lost, but to have another opportunity to go there and do that would be fantastic. So we'll have to see. Finally, just want to ask you about the stadium. Of course, we've heard about plans to potentially move away or to expand St James's Park. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think would be best for the club, and what can you see happening? What's most likely?
So my feelings regarding this is, I think it's important that you stay at your home or as close to your home as you possibly can. Now, it's probably an obvious thing to say, but growing up being a Hearts fan, we had an owner who tried to move us out into the countryside, the stadium, and I remember not wanting it at all. We managed to stay at Tynecastle. We redeveloped the stadium, and it was the best thing we ever did. Now, I know this is on a different level, but for me, if you're to stay at St James's Park, great. But I think if you were able to get a move to the nearby Leazes Park, where you're only moving the stadium a couple of hundred yards away, whatever, I think you're still in the footprint of the stadium and it still feels like St James's Park. My worry would be if they wanted to move the stadium out of town somewhere, I think it takes away from the novelty value of St James's Park, where you come there and there's 100 pubs in the space of like half a mile of the stadium. It's great. That's why all the away fans want to come there. And I would love to see you stay at St James's Park, or stay as close to St James's Park as possible. If that was not an option and you were having to move out of town up here to where the training ground is, or Gosport or whatever, I would suggest staying at St James's Park would be the best thing. So it's going to be really interesting to see the outcome. I know we were told, I think, by the club that it would be January. It sounds as though it's going to be later on now in the season. So let's see what comes of it. But look, there's no denying, need a bigger stadium.
Sure.
And not just for the fans who want to go to games, but for commercial reasons as well. The club needs to improve commercially so that you guys can attempt to compete with the Man Uniteds and the Man Cities and the Arsenal of the world, because you're not doing it at the moment. And while the club on the pitch has improved dramatically since the takeover, behind the scenes it's probably not moved on commercially as what you guys would have wanted. And you need to be able to compete with these guys. Your commercial revenue right now is what, a quarter or a third of Manchester City. While that remains, you're unable to compete with them financially.
Of course, yeah. Completely agree with you. Thank you very much.
No worries.
For this interview today.
Cheers.